Right. We are very fortunate enough to have the co-founders of the street store. And just to give background to why we are doing this interview, it is World Peace Day coming up on the 21st of September. And we felt it incumbent upon ourselves to do something positive, to share the love, and to talk about bringing people together. And one thing that crossed my path recently was information about the street store, and I thought, what a wonderful idea. Pity I never thought of it. And then someone mentioned to me that it wasn't just an idea that everyone is doing, it actually originated in my own city, which I was quite excited to hear. And then, of course, I had to do a little bit of digging, and I found out that Kayli and Max were involved, and hence I decided to invite them to chat about the street store so we can find out a little bit more about it. What is the point of the street store, and how has it grown, and how can people use it for their benefit? We do have a couple of people who are watching us live in the room with us as well. We have Sebastian from India and Betsy from the US, and we'll have a couple of other teachers joining us as well. And people will be watching it live on YouTube on livingmaths.com. So I would like to welcome both Kayli and Max. And I think the best thing for you guys is just to tell us a little bit about yourselves. Maybe we'll start with Kayli. Where are you from, and what do you guys do? I mean, you're not from Cape Town, so what brought you to Cape Town?
Hello. Hi. I am from Durban originally, Durban, South Africa, and I moved to Cape Town to come and study here. And I studied at UCT, University of Cape Town. I did a BA in Linguistics, Media Writing, and Film. And then from there, I decided to carry on studying, and I went and did a 2-year diploma in copywriting at the Red and Yellow School of Logic and Magic. Sounds very fancy.
So you're a creative person.
Yes. So
okay.
I did copywriting afterwards. And then this is actually my first job at MNC Saatchi Able. So I started here 3 years ago, and I was partnered with Max.
Very cool. And Max, what brings you to this whole situation?
I am, hi everyone. I am Max, and I am a born and bred Cape Townian. And in high school, someone told me about advertising and art direction, and I was very interested, and I asked them what it was, and they said I should Google it. So I did, and I loved the idea of it, so I went to go study at AAA School of Advertising here in Cape Town, and so I did that, and this is also my first job, and Kayli and I got partnered, as she said, and then the street store happened.
Wow, so you guys are fresh off the academic block, and then you walk straight into a job, because obviously the schools, the colleges or the institutions that you studied at were quite reputable, and finding work generally isn't too much of a problem if you show some talent, I would assume. And
yeah, it's not a very easy industry to get into.
I can imagine not. But you guys are talented, so that's probably why you got in.
We work hard.
And you've been working at your current company for how long?
I've been here for 3 years.
3 years.
I've been here for 4 years.
Okay, so you're still quite new in the scene. And how did this whole street store idea come about?
Hello, new people.
Cheryl, all the way from the US as well. So, Cheryl, we're just going to mute you so that we don't have any sound coming through. Okay. Okay, so you were telling us, like, how did this whole idea of the street store come about?
So the agency we work at, MNC Saatchi Able, is in Greenpoint in Cape Town, and it's a very hip and trendy area. There's a lot of hotels, there's a lot of shops, a lot of really high-end restaurants, but at the same time there's a very big homeless problem in the area. And every day from our office balcony we see who we call the haves and the have-nots crossing each other's paths, but they never really meet one another. We don't like to call people rich and poor because we live and work in this area, and we're definitely not rich. But we have more than the homeless. And so what we wanted to do is bring the people together to learn from one another, because there's this deep-set stereotype that all homeless people are criminals. And we wanted to change that. We knew it wasn't true. And on the other hand, the homeless, because they're ignored so often, they forget that we're people. They just see the haves as pockets. So we wanted both sides to come together and remember that the other side was human.
Okay, but did you just look out the window and the idea came to you? Or were you challenged to come up with an idea? I mean, what was the seed that spawned the whole idea?
So we have a client called the Night Haven, and to try and they help rehabilitate people to get them off the streets and get their lives going again and start again, basically. And they are our clients, and normally we would do a flyer or something or anything like that, but we kind of thought that wasn't going to be almost effective enough to get people to notice who the Haven is and to get them to donate and to get them to help these people. So what first started off as a poster idea, where we could just make awareness of the Night Haven and what they do. Started off as a poster idea where we thought, well, why don't we hang clothing through a poster and it would be recognizable enough on the street poles, going, for effective enough. And then Kayli said, well, if we're putting clothing on, why don't we take clothing off? And after that, it turned into, okay, well, we've got to monitor it somehow, so why don't we turn it into a store? And then it was a pop-up store, and then, it just evolved from there into something
But
big.
it really did start with us sitting on our balcony and watching people walk past and seeing how they ignored one another. And we realized that you could ask for donations. We could have sent out a lovely emotive email or a flyer or something to tell people to go donate at the Haven Night Shelter. But in order to actually change these perceptions now and in the future, we needed to do something bigger, because guilting people into giving is not a solution. It's very short term, whereas changing those perceptions and actually making them reevaluate how they look at the world and they look at other people is going to change the way they act. And it went both ways. It was important for us, for the homeless, to meet the people who are donating, because they forget that people care and they start to see us, as I said earlier, as pockets. And that's why you often find that they'll chase you down the road asking you for money, saying, why don't you help me, please help me. And it's because they forget that you're a person and they can't be treated like that. So it was very important for both sides to connect.
Because we also get told not to give handouts. So we become quite desensitized and we just, kind of try and forget about what's going on around us. So it was, as Kayli said, very important for us to connect both sides.
Okay. So you obviously get this wonderful opportunity to create something for the Haven Night Shelter for the benefit of homeless people, which is always awesome. And then you get to put your creative brains together to come up with a lovely campaign, and you go and make these posters. You go and create this little store. Who put the first one up? What actually happened the first time you started it?
Well, it was actually terrifying, because in our advertising way, we decided we needed to seed the idea. We needed to get it out there in a way that was going to capture people's imaginations. So we didn't just go and put it there and wait. We started a social media campaign where very mysteriously we started talking about a new shop coming to South Africa, a shop where there was no money exchanged, a place where people who live on the streets can find something that they've always wanted. And we kind of spoke about it in this way for a few days, about 3 or 4 days. And within 2 days, we were already trending nationwide. We'd been asked to do interviews on radio. We were invited onto national TV. And so people were already falling in love with this idea that they didn't even understand before it had even launched.
No one knew what the concept was. They just knew that there was a particular store that did not involve any money, and did you mention where it would take place?
It was happening in Cape Town.
Okay.
And that it would help the homeless eventually, that we started talking about how it was going to start helping the homeless, and people just kind of caught onto it. And then we just announced, our next tweet was that we were launching the world's first rent-free, premises-free, free pop-up clothing store for the homeless, found entirely on the streets and curated by donations.
And then, what happened then?
It exploded. It was insane.
It went crazy.
It was crazy.
what we all called it went viral, all of a sudden, which was crazy.
We were on TV. We were on
Did you go to
radio.
that first store? I mean, were you there when it was first set up?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah, we
set it
did.
up,
We did the
ran
whole
it.
thing.
Yeah.
And so where did you get all your clothing from? And what did you learn from the first time you set up to maybe modify for the next street store that was going to open?
So what's very important for us is that we, personally, when we host our own street stores, we don't take any clothing donations in advance. Because for us, it's not a sterile clothing drive where you just go and drop your clothes off somewhere. But our end goal is to get people to meet the homeless. So we only take donations on the day. You have to come to donate your clothes, otherwise, thank you very much for your generosity, but it's not quite what we're looking for. So that was what was so scary for us, that we were sitting on the side of the road at 6 o'clock in the morning, twiddling our thumbs, hoping that someone would arrive to make a donation.
And that was a learning. That was one of the learnings that we actually had, was like, people don't go to work. People are getting ready for work. They're not going to work yet. So
we got So we were freaking out that no one was going to come, but actually they were just still sleeping. So by 7 o'clock, the donations just started pouring in.
So now, when you have all this clothing coming in, you only have a certain number of posters that you've put up on the fences. So how are you managing all of that?
So what we did is, if people had time, they could stop and they could hang up their clothing on our posters. If they didn't have time, there was a place where they could drop off men's, women, and children's clothing in separate boxes, but it was in the store. It was all in the same place.
Okay.
And then we would sort through it to make sure that, because you've got to keep the men's clothes separate from the women's clothes, two little different aisles of the store. And it just gave people a chance to interact and a place to actually stand and talk and get to know one another.
And it was also, I mean, it was also important. People who didn't actually have the time. It was 7 in the morning. It was a working day, so they could just, drop off their clothes at the point, and then we would sort it for them, because a lot of the stuff would be mixed in one bag. So we'd have one central point where we'd sort everything.
But they still had to come to the store, and they still came into contact with the homeless. And it was amazing how we changed from our first store to the one we did one on Sunday. At the first store, I'll be honest, I was holding my bag like it was a third limb. I was so scared that someone was going to try and steal it. I didn't want to take my cell phone out because I wanted to tweet photos, but I was nervous. And from that fear, that place of fear, to this Sunday where I see a homeless person who I recognize and I run up to them and we're hugging on the side of the road, the way we look at people has completely changed. And even if that happens to the people who come to the street store, not everyone else, those changed perceptions mean the world to us.
And that also, I mean, to your earlier question about our learnings, it was very important for us to do the street store and to see what would happen and the mechanics of it and all of that, because we wanted to share our learnings as well with those who wanted to host a street store. So we had to tell them the simple things like, remember to keep your volunteers hydrated. It's very long hours, make sure there's shade, because in the middle of the day you're standing there for hours and the sun is beating down on you. It makes you tired.
We had to make mistakes so that we could make it easy for other people.
And we wrote a guidebook to help people as well.
Now, when you first started, your intention wasn't to make it a viral event around the world. It wasn't the intention to do it on streets in different countries. You just were aiming to do something in Greenpoint. Is that correct?
Well, we had spoken about the fact that we wanted to do it. We didn't think there would be such a great reception to it. We didn't think that people would love the idea as much as they did. So we'd always thought that it would be amazing if we could do these again and again and again, but we knew that in our personal capacity it wouldn't be possible. So we were always looking for a way to try and share it. And in that first day, when everyone started really supporting us, we realized that we could get people around the world to do the same. And it was already in the back of our minds to go open source right at the beginning, because what's the point of helping people if you can only help a few?
Correct.
And even in our industry, in the advertising industry, where everything is about your idea and how it's yours, and you have to hold onto it so tight because it's your intellectual property, and you've just got to be so careful that no one else steals your idea, so that you can have all the glory. Even in our industry, that wasn't as important as the potential for people around the world to host initiatives of their own.
Okay. Well, we've just had a question come in from one of my students. Hello, Sarah. I know you're watching this at home, and she wants to know how many homeless people showed up the first time it opened, and was it as good as you expected? I mean, what were your expectations for the first time?
The first one was our biggest one. Over 1,000 homeless people showed up at the first one.
Wow. And how many staff did you have at that session?
I think we had about 18.
Yeah, and I mean, and everyone got, with staff, everyone got involved. Not only did the Night Haven have volunteers come through, but everyone in our office, everyone was just keen to volunteer and join. So they rocked up on the day and they spent, you know, a few hours. And even people off the street, which was amazing, they'd come there, ask, what is going on here? What is this? And we'd explain it to them, and then they were like, I'll stay. What do you need me to do? And they stayed the whole day. And even like this now past Sunday ago, she said I can only stay for 20 minutes, and this was at the beginning of the day, and she stayed right until the end. It was insane. And every time it blows our mind how people are just so responsive and willing to help.
What we also wanted to do that was quite important for us was to have the Haven very much involved in the process. So they gave us volunteers. Half of them were residents of the night shelter who were able to get work experience out of the day to add to their CV to get a job in the future, and the other half of them were actually their counsellors and the staff of the Haven who were able to speak to the homeless on the streets. Social workers, that's the word. And they were able to speak to the homeless and explain to them how to get off the streets and how the Haven can help them. And we had 2 instances where in the one, someone was actually taken straight off the street and into the Haven. She went, she had a meal, she had a shower, she came back in her new clothes, and she has a home now. And another instance is sometimes it's quite hard to get people off the streets into rehabilitation because there aren't that many rehab facilities, and there's a waiting list. So the Haven had actually gotten someone into rehab, but then he went missing and they couldn't find him. And you can't exactly just phone up a homeless person to find out where they are to tell them to take them to rehab. And the street store was a meeting point. The social worker saw this gentleman, said to him, we're ready to take you to rehab. They called the car and off he went.
That is fantastic.
So it kind of closed the loop for us that not only were we giving to the homeless, giving them the clothes, but we were also giving them the tools in a way to learn how to get off the streets and hopefully make a difference.
But now, as far as I understand, homeless people are not very big on social media and don't have access to all the kinds of tools that we do. So how did you market this to them? I mean, I can imagine, if you had 1,000 people turn out, something must have gone on.
We didn't market it to them. It's actually the network, actually. Just like we are, we're always human beings, we're social creatures. Most homeless people on the streets know each other. They have friends and they have family that they live with, so it just verbally just exploded on the streets. And they came from all around Cape Town.
So that's even more powerful than Facebook. Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So this one would call their friends, and their friend would get involved, and they'll go and find another person's friends. And we also invited the residents who live in the Haven Night Shelter, that they were able to come. And they knew in advance, so they were able to go and find friends of them who are on the streets. But also, there's the bus terminal, the bus and the train and everything. There's a station. Copywriter who's terrible at thinking about words. There's a station very close to where we were. And it was quite an important thing that you've got to find a location where it's very easy for both the haves and the have-nots to come together, and both sides will feel comfortable. You wouldn't want to go out into a township because at the end of the day, people aren't going to go and donate there. And at the same time, you can't go into a suburb where the homeless don't frequent. So we chose our areas very carefully.
Okay, so obviously a lot of thought goes into the process. Now, when you first got your 1,000 people, did you have enough clothing for all of them?
And there were certain points where they had to wait, but at the end of the day, they got something.
And one of the things that we learned was that after our first restore, when we started, every time we do a next one, and in our guide we wrote that there are more men on the street than there are women, because most of the women are in shelters. So And women are more willing to give away their clothing
because they have more.
Because they have more, and men tend to like hold on to it. So we had the ratio was out of balance. So there were more men on the street, but less men's clothing was being given, and there were less women on the streets, and more women's clothing was being given. So there's quite a big imbalance. So we had to make up in front, like this last street store, we had to tell people up in front that please donate your men's clothing and your men's shoes, because there's more homeless men on the street than there are women.
Okay, and now do you have a way of communicating? Obviously, Twitter is one way, and email, and but I mean, are you tapping into the regular people, or are you looking for new people all the time? And how do you source these people to donate clothing for your street store?
So every event that we host ourselves, or a publicly hosted event, is listed on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/thestreetstore.org. And all our events are listed there. There's about 7 coming up in the next month around the world. And in those groups, you ask for what you need. And then people share those, and that's our main way of explaining where the different stores are. We use Twitter to do the same, but Twitter is more about communicating with people, whereas Facebook is used mainly to promote events.
Wow. And what about the impact on the homeless people themselves? I mean, you've obviously taken some time to speak to a few of them to find out what it means to them. Maybe you want to share some of that with us?
In our last store, what we did is we actually had a little book that if they wanted to write something, they could. And there were a few stories, people writing the most beautiful things. That someone said to me that no one takes him seriously because he's dirty and his clothes were ugly. And he said, I can finally go out and feel like a person again because I didn't have to beg for this. I got a full outfit and I look like a human being. And
wow.
Those are, I just got.
Me too.
And that is what they said to us, is that to feel like a person, to feel clean, to feel appreciated, because we did. Every single homeless person that came through, we gave attention to. We showed them respect because they deserve respect. So many of them, they haven't done anything to deserve what's happened to them. A lot of them, something terrible has just happened in their life. Bad luck. Life's thrown them a curveball, and they just got stuck. We had a woman actually who lived in the UK, and she was a carer for the elderly, and the person she was caring for passed away. And in the same week, she was looking for a new job. In the same week, her cell phone got stolen, and then her car got stolen. So she couldn't go to interviews or phone around to try and get a new job. And so she was struggling to get a job, and then she was struggling to pay her rent. So she decided to just come back to South Africa. So she bought her ticket, she came back, and got back and found that she just couldn't get a job. She just wasn't, it wasn't the right time for her, and she ended up on the street. And she was stuck on the street for about 4 years until she decided to make a change in her life, and she moved into the Haven. Other stories about people who they lost everything, lost their job, lost their home, and their families wouldn't even take them in. Their families just said, no, they've got their own problems to deal with. And so instead of trying to be a burden on someone, they decided it was easier to live on the streets. And that mindset is something that needs to change, and that's what the Haven social workers were able to do at the store, was to try and change that mindset that it's easier on the street because there's no responsibility. And they did.
So would you say that it might be an accurate statement to conclude that not only are you running a street store for the homeless, but you're also providing an empowerment opportunity for the social workers at the Haven to do some deep subliminal work with some of the homeless people to let them know that it's more to it than just obviously a clothing store, if you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The thing is also, I mean, a lot of the social workers, they have a really tough job, and they have to go into some really dangerous areas, to find these people and to, get to speak to them and to start talking to them, and even just to start a conversation. And creating this platform just helps, again, those two worlds to come together, and giving them up the opportunity to speak to each other.
So for me, I'm always curious about the process and the people involved. You started this whole store. It obviously exploded more than you could ever have imagined. And then you posted all your photographs and things on the internet, and people started sharing video clips and photos. And I was on Facebook, and I saw this, and I thought, wow, this is an international thing. It's such a brilliant idea. We have homeless people here too. This would be so amazing in Cape Town. And then I found out this was started in Cape Town. It was quite exciting for me to discover that. But now it's moving overseas. How many people have taken onto this idea? I mean, can you quantify this sort of thing?
Yeah,
Yes,
no, definitely. We've got numbers.
We have numbers.
Thanks for numbers. There have been 28 street stores globally that have already happened. There are another 7, I think, that are in process in the next month that are already listed on our Facebook page. So I'm just going to go to our event page over here. If I look at it in the next month, we've got events in Mexico, India, in Tampa Bay, in Ohio, in Winnipeg, in Ontario, in Spain, and in Louisville, Louisiana. Louisville. No, that's Louisville. Louisville, I don't know. We're not good at geography, it seems. So there's 7 events coming up in the next month, and then we've had over 1,400 applications online of people who want to host. So those are slowly trickling in. As before we started speaking to you, we actually got 2 more confirmed events. One in Peru, I think it was, and another one in the US.
None on Mount Everest. Maybe we can speak to one of our colleagues who's out in Nepal. I'm sure that there are plenty of people in Kathmandu that could benefit. So now these street stores are going to pop up all over the place. You've written a guidebook to obviously try and assist people. How are you taking the learnings from each other street store that has popped up? Because every culture is different, every country is different. Everyone's going to experience different things. Maybe different laws are different about what you're allowed to do on the street and what you can and what you can't do. So how are you gathering that information to make a more universal booklet that would be helpful to other people?
So while we haven't made a universal booklet because it's quite difficult to keep control of that sort of thing, after every store we ask the hosts to write us their story. And we don't edit out the difficulties. It's all in there, and then we go onto our website, www.thestreetstore.org, and all our albums are there with their stories that explain how it worked, and each album is titled where it is and who the people were that hosted it. So I mean, there was a group in Johannesburg in South Africa who really struggled, and then the municipality made them take out R1 million worth of insurance to make sure that nothing went wrong. They did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they did it,
but they
which was
still
amazing.
Did it.
Like,
but now we've helped them realize that there's other ways. I mean, you don't have to do it on a street. It's a lot easier to do it on, if you have those issues, to do it in a parking lot, which is private property, works just as well. And going forward, we tell people that. And if anyone has any questions, we're on the other side of an email address, and we're very happy to help. You can also always go into our events and look at the past events and speak directly to the hosts of those events, because they're still in there as the hosts, so they'll get all notifications of any questions that may come through.
And also, what was great about the idea and how it grew, and because we put it online and made it open source, and everyone took the idea and kind of put their own little twist on it. I mean, there was a group who did one just for kids, and because we don't allow any monetary exchange as one of our pledges, they asked if they could actually ask the kids to bring a piece of recyclable material for a piece of clothing, but just to teach them some recycling, teach them about recycling. So everyone did, people put their own small twist on it, and all in good ways. So I think that's also what's great about the idea.
There's been a really cool one, I think it was in Canada. They said that a lot of the homeless people, they have dogs. And so they asked donors to take little sandwich bags of dog food and donate that as well, because they realized there was another problem in their area and they needed help. So that's not really a big thing here, but we weren't going to stop them. The only thing that we don't recommend in any case, and we'd never say go for it, is giving away food, for two reasons. The one is that it perpetuates the problem of begging. It doesn't help in the long run. And the other is that if you make someone sick, there's a major, major problem at hand, and we don't want to be a part of that. We're very wary around the legalities around giving away food. And bottles of water are different, but giving away food and meals is quite a risky place to be in. So we try and steer away from that.
All right. Well, one of the things that obviously is very close to my heart is mathematics and problem solving. And clearly, you know, we're trying to show people, especially teachers out there, that maths is not just a set of numbers, that it really is about solving real-life problems. And you guys are doing exactly that. You are applying your minds to different scenarios. You're trying to come up with ideas that will work for everyone, and balancing all of that is obviously a very mathematical exercise. Are you finding that maybe your posters need to evolve to accommodate different types of clothing, because maybe it couldn't hold the jeans or the tops? Because if I remember correctly, they had like a hole in them and you put clothing through. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. You know what? Actually, that's another amazing thing, because the files are open files and they do keep changing there. We have seen that other stores have done that already, because we've made it open and, you know, changeable and malleable, and also it's just a matter of scaling really. With the posters, you can just scale it up from your normal A2 to your A1, and it can accommodate things. And we normally just put 2 or 3 items on our things already. And I think because of what's actually great is because of the way the posters hang in their linear structure, their vertical structure, it actually creates quite a good tension, and it actually does last for quite a bit unless they get wet.
But strangely enough, there's never been a rain issue. There's never been a rain issue.
Well, this is Cape Town, so
there was one group who knew it was going to be raining that weekend, and so look, more people. So they knew it was going to be raining that weekend, and so they just planned to have tents and things. But there's in our 28 stores so far, none of them have been rained out. Oh, you're taking pictures.
Just in case. So I mean, I suppose you could get those plastic boards that if you printed on those, rain wouldn't be an issue, and you wouldn't have to keep making new ones. So from an affordability, what about sponsors that come along and go, you know, I think this is so in tune with our brand, we would like to call it the X, let's say the Living Maths Street Store, and we want to host our own one in our own. Is that something that you would endorse?
So
yes.
In our short answer, yes. But how it works is that in our logo, I don't know if you can see it by our names. There's a little hanger. There's a little hanger underneath the words "the street store." So in that gap, either you put the charity's logo, who you're helping promote, or if you've got a major sponsor, you can put their logo there. And lots of people have done that. That's no problem at all. As long as our logo itself remains intact, and whatever secondary logo goes into that little gap, it's not a problem at all.
And it is. I mean, it was created that way. It was created so that people could collaborate and, you know, own it themselves. And also, I mean, we've had a lot of emails and sponsors, you know, donating, you know, wanting to donate, and printers wanting to donate, the printing process and all of that.
And it's great. And all those sponsors' names just go straight onto each group, so people always know who it is. It goes into the final story that goes onto our website. So we try and share as much as we can. And
also, to your question with the you know, card and making it plastic and all that, one of the things was we didn't want to actually make it too plastic and, you know, quite shiny and all of that. And we wanted to keep it quite real, the design quite real to the street, because if you make a bright and colorful, shiny poster made out of resin or whatever, you know, it's really like, I don't think the homeless would actually want to engage with it. It's very unfamiliar to them, very like striking and off-putting. For us, I mean, Lumo colors and all that kind of stuff it's very different. This story for us. So
and more dignified.
Yes.
Approach.
Flashy thing.
It's not a show. It's not a show. You know.
It's down to earth.
Yeah.
It's
okay. And you know, when people start an idea and the idea starts growing, who is going to be the custodian of this idea? What are your plans to grow the idea into other things as well besides the street store? Are you looking at the street restaurant where all of a sudden maybe not people donating food, but maybe people creating food on the side of the road? Are you looking at, for example, from a sustainability point of view, getting the homeless people to run the street store so it becomes its own sustainable project?
We have a few thoughts. We have a few plans, which we can't share with you right now. we are looking at carrying on. We do want to develop the brand, and we do want to push it further, so that we want to carry on helping people and in doing it in different ways. I like the idea of getting the homeless to run them. That's quite interesting. Yes. But at the moment, what we're trying to do is get this in every country around the world. We're trying to get the idea to spread, and it is. I mean, we've had nearly 300,000 views on our video, the one that you were speaking about, which is enormous for us. Tiny little idea from Cape Town that suddenly everyone is interested in. And so we just want to see these things growing around the world, and we want to make it as easy as possible. So we're also working on ways of making the whole process of downloading the files simpler. But people seem to think that there's this massive street store organization, and it's not. It's us in our agency, responding to every tweet.
Don't forget your fan base. You have a large fan base around the world as well. So you are a large a large entity. Although you might be managed by two people, you are a large entity in itself. That is amazing. So now, obviously, I mean, you're not going to be divulging all your ideas in terms of where you're moving, but...
Uh-oh. Hello? He's coming back.
He'll come back.
Hey, Steve, where'd you go?
There are some internet problems, I think.
Technical difficulties.
I joined you all a little bit.
My office at
Hello.
Hello.
I am at is that? I am at Startup Village in India.
I'll be back.
Let me see.
Welcome back.
Well, I should be able to launch one in Kerala. My place.
Sebastian knows that when something like this happens and one of us gets kicked out of the room for some unknown reason, we're not sure what it is, then one of our fellow teachers will just take over as if that was all part of the plan. So Sebastian is an outstanding educator out in Kerala in India, and he's doing wonderful work where he teaches. And I think he's posted his website.
Catherine Zablatnik is here, but she doesn't have a camera.
Kathy, yes. He's saying that Kathy is from Austria. She was the founding member of our group of international teachers, and she doesn't have a camera with her, but she's certainly listening in, and she's typing in comments every now and again in the chat channel. So now, Sebastian, do you have any questions? Or maybe Cheryl, do you or any of your students have a question? Or Kathy, would you like to ask a question? I know that there was a question about from Cheryl, because she missed the introduction. She wanted to know where you guys are from, and Kayli and Max are from South Africa. Kayli originally from Durban, and Max from the metropolis of which suburb is it?
In Sea Point. Oh, that place. From Brackenfell.
The best
From Brackenfell, really
Wow.
a magnificent area. What do they call the armpit of the northern? No, I'm joking. We don't want to get into trouble for things like that. But they are both from South Africa, and of course, sharing their inspiring idea, the street store. Now, what always goes on in my head is that you guys are obviously doing a full-time job. You're busy working as advertising people, so to speak. You are creatives, but yet you've got the street store that's turning into its own little monster. What's going to happen now?
It is a little monster. It is a little monster, but we love this little monster, and so
we'll feed it.
We'll feed it, and we'll look after it, and we'll respond to those emails, and we'll reply to those tweets, and we'll reply to them again because there was a language barrier mistake, and we'll do it again and again because we love it, and we believe in this thing so much that we will make it work. And it takes a lot of time, but the agency's been incredible. I mean, we couldn't have done this without them. We came up with the idea, and they backed us the entire way. They've backed us in every single thing we wanted to do, and they give us the time, and they give us the resources to make this happen. And there's times where it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I want to throw my computer away because I'm sick of responding to people's requests and questions, and it's on and on and on and on. But then I remember that these are people who want to make a difference in their communities, and it's the most amazing, humbling thing. And it makes me smile, and then I remember that it's okay. Oh, you're gonna smile! Ah! And every little difficulty is so worth it. Every time we get an album of photos from around the world, it blows our mind that somehow this little idea turned into something so big. And from an advertising perspective, obviously, we took the idea and we did it because we thought it was cool for our clients, and we entered it into advertising awards, and it's been recognized we won at the Apex Awards. It's a local award that's only for effectiveness. You can't enter based on creativity. It's based on effectiveness. You've got to give them numbers. You've got to explain how you've helped or changed or done whatever.
A lot of stats.
So we won a gold in the change category, the category of change, and we won the special award for the most effective campaign for a charity, which was absolutely mind-blowing and means the absolute world to us because we didn't do this to be creative. We did this to make a difference. It just happened to be a creative idea. We also won a gold and a bronze at the Cannes International Advertising Festival, and then just today we found out that we won a gold and 2 silvers at the Clio's New York-based advertising awards. So that's been a pretty lovely day.
But now wait a second, did I drive past the International Convention Center and notice that they are hosting the Lurie Awards?
Oh yes. That's this weekend. So we've entered
the Are you guys going to that?
Yes. So we've got a few entries.
And are you entering
what happens?
Categories?
And we've entered about 5 different categories. We've already been shortlisted for integrated campaign and for social media campaign, use of social media. And we've still got events and activations, design work, I think it was, and then innovative idea.
So
fingers crossed.
Have you got any witty comments?
Sorry?
That is so cool. I was just saying, have you prepared your speech?
Oh, no, there's no speech.
No.
If you win, you just have to try and not fall up the stairs. that is the end goal.
That is very, very cool. So I mean, all right. So I mean, I like to look at the whole concept, and I like to think of where it's going to go and what's going to come out of it. And then I like to start thinking of ideas that have been spawned from this whole project. And as an educator, I see so many opportunities where I don't know if you are aware of Kane's Arcade. No? Drew a blank there? Okay, so Cain is a young boy who came up with this idea of building a cardboard games arcade. And he built it in his dad's shop. But the problem was no one ever came to Cain's arcade. And along comes my friend Nirvan, and Nirvan is a movie maker, and he gets to the store and he sees Cain standing there and he goes, you know, could I take part in your arcade? And Cain says, you can spend, I think it was $2, and you can have 25 goes, but for $5 you can get a special pass that 100 goes. So of course, Nirvan took the better deal, and he was sitting there. He had like a little basketball post made out of cardboard, and you would throw paper balls in, and then he would climb into the box and push the tickets out of the box. And then he had, for example, a calculator, and if you brought your ticket along with your fun pass, if he needed to check that it was an authentic ticket, he had done the square root on the calculator, and he had written it on the ticket. So he would then take a number and do the square root and see if the number was a legitimate square root result. So Nirvan was so impressed with them. And you're going to love the story. It's kind of almost in line with what you guys do. Nirvan then went on to Reddit and a whole bunch of other well-known sites, and he started getting people together for a flash mob. And Cain was taken with his dad out for pizza that morning, and everyone in Los Angeles turned up for a flash mob. And when Cain arrived, everyone was shouting, we came to play, we came to play. Yeah. Now, what happened after that is it grew like a little monster. Cain was then given sponsorship from a lot of people, donations for his college funds. He's been to Cannes, he's been to many various places to come and speak about his Cain's Arcade. He's even started a whole thing where the founder, Nirvan, has collaborated with people with the Imagination Foundation. They are now starting the Global Cardboard Challenge Day, where that's literally, wherever you go in the world, different countries are now signing up to build things out of cardboard. So can you imagine if the store became something like that, where schools, for example, would have their own street store, and although it's not for money, it's about the process of how do you know what clothing matches which people? How do you know how to sort the clothing? There's a process in it.
Yeah.
And it's a learning process. And what I would like to know is, in terms of following up on these people, what kind of difference, apart from a comment in a book, what kind of difference did it make in the lives of some of these homeless people weeks or months later? You know, getting a thick, warm jacket for the middle of winter can have a profound difference in a person's life. Having clean clothes means that a person could go for a job interview. That could have a profound difference in a person's life. So is there some sort of mechanism that you're looking to do some longitudinal feedback to find out the reach and the impact that you guys are making?
Obviously, that's something that would be amazing to be able to do. In our short amount of time that we've been working on this, I mean, it's only 9 months old. We started on the 14th of January. We have stories just like that. I mean, our very first donation came in on the 14th of January at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. And it was donated, we put it down, and it was our lonely little item. And about 5 minutes later, a homeless man walked past, and he had quite a shabby suit on, but he was wearing a suit, and he had broken trainers, tackies. He had broken shoes on. The soles were coming off. They were falling apart. And he said to us, I'm going for a job interview. I don't need clothes. Do you have shoes for me? And we said, well, we only have shoes. What size are you? And they fitted him. They were a pair of leather, smart, formal shoes. And he put them on, and he threw his shoes away in the bin, and he went for a job interview. And we couldn't find him afterwards. That's one of the problems. You can't just go and find a person. He didn't come back and tell us if he got the job. But you can imagine even in anybody going to a job interview feeling proud of yourself and proud to be there, is going to give you a lot more courage and ability than if you've got broken, falling apart shoes on. So just it was funny that you mentioned that, because that was something that actually happened. Another thing is that we take clothing for granted, a lot of us. And yeah, we can't all have expensive brand clothing. I mean, I don't take that for granted. I know I can't afford it, but I can buy myself clothes. And it's not just the actual buying and having, it's that freedom of choice that we take for granted. We choose where to sleep, we choose what to eat, we choose what to wear. And that is something that we gave people. They were able to come to the street store and find something they liked. And if they didn't like something at that time, they said, no, thank you, I'll come back just now, when there is something that I like. And we'll show them a shirt and we'll put it up and we'll go, look, it's very nice. And they go, I don't like green. And you know what? Beggars can be choosers because they should be able to. And we gave them that freedom of choice and that dignity, and that's something that we take so for granted every single day, and we were able to give it back to them. And longer term difference, I'm not sure. We don't know, but that is something that has stuck with people. And they've come. We've actually had people come back. Sorry, we can't hear.
Is that your line that's going to go with your brand? That beggars can be choosers. Because that's very powerful.
It's true.
I like that.
We've thrown it around a bit. But, I mean, we've had people come back from the first store to one of the other ones because our one on Sunday was in the same location as the first one, which meant that it was the same homeless community. And they've said that they remembered us and they'll never forget us. They'll never forget the day that they were able to go shopping for clothes. And
how's it?
We can't hear you again.
Pardon?
How is it you?
We can't hear you.
I think we're having a technical issue. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How has it changed you?
It's funny. It's actually quite nice for me. I don't know about Kay, but for me, I used to do a lot of charity work at school, and I used to, go to an orphanage and stuff. And when you start work, you quite easily forget, to go do those things because it is an effort. It is something you have to go and do, and go out and make an effort. And it's on weekends, so when you start working, it's quite difficult. And I had completely, almost forgotten about it. I'd go once every 4 or 5 months, where I used to go every weekend, and I think this was really nice to bring you back to that and to remember why you were doing it. And it's just extremely humbling, and you don't look, when you're walking down the street, you don't have the same view and eyes anymore at all. It's your view about and of the street and your knowledge of the street is completely different, completely changed. The way you interact with someone that asks you for money or to help them out is completely different, and your mindset's different towards it, and you just tackle it in a very different way than what you would normally do. So I know that was for me, and I'm pretty sure for Kayli as well.
It changes the way you look at people. Like we said, it reminds you that homeless people are people. And that sounds like such a silly thing, because obviously they're people. Obviously they are. But both sides start treating the other like they're not. They see us as pockets. We see them as a nuisance, something to ignore. And the more we ignore them, the more they feel dehumanized and the more they see us as pockets. Because it's a lot easier to forget that the other side is a person, because then you can ignore them. And for them, it's a lot easier to beg when you don't think of that as another human being. So that is obviously what everything that Max has said, I've second. And another thing is that, I actually said this on Sunday, I'm busy going through this bag of clothing that someone brought. They didn't have time to hang up. And I'm like taking all this dirty clothing out, and I'm like, there's underwear, and there's this, and there's that. And I'm thinking, I never thought at any point in my life would I be going through someone else's old clothes and deciding what was good enough for the homeless. And a lot of it wasn't. A lot of it was dirty, and it was horrible, and I couldn't believe that people would think that that is a dignified thing to give. So a lot of the time, if clothes are very, very, very dirty or broken, we don't even put it out. Because if I wouldn't feel proud wearing it, Why should a homeless person have to have that?
Mm.
So it kind of brings you back down to earth.
So are you now educating people? I mean, do you find you need to educate people on how to actually donate? And second of all, do you feel that you know, because we're talking about peace and it's World Peace Day on the 21st of September, do you think that getting to know the other side can take us 2 or 3 steps closer to understanding the other side and resulting possibly in something a little bit more peaceful?
Yes, definitely. If the other side, from both sides, is alien to you, how can you connect? And how can you respect one another?
And it's crazy how just one thing and breaking down that first barrier just steamrolls into, you know, opening up to getting to know someone who you would ignore completely, and you wouldn't care to know their story. And the moment you interact with them, and it changes things. Yeah.
Sure. And I mean, if you were going to ever leave a legacy behind, something that you want people to know about you and this particular project, what sort of message would you give to young people in terms of giving them ideas about making a difference? Why is it so important to make a difference as a young person? And possibly you know, just some ideas in terms of how people that are not creatives, that don't have an agency behind us, how we could maybe get involved in the street store and spread the love.
So a funny thing is it's connected to something that we've done before. In April, I think it was, there was a TEDx talk hosted at a school here in Cape Town, and we were invited to be one of the speakers. And we spoke about the street store, and we related it to students and how what we've learned can impact their life. And we'll share that link with you, because it was all about how our learnings aren't just focused on the street store. It's about stuff that you do in your everyday life. It was all about forgetting who you are, because it's only when you forget who you are or who you think you are that you have the opportunity to do something more. So we're not just advertising people. We had an opportunity to do something that became a social movement. We had to forget the fear that it wouldn't work so that we could actually just go out there and make it happen. We had to forget that old school mentality of keeping your ideas to yourself so that it could become something bigger and it could help people not just in Greenpoint and Cape Town but around the world. And that was what the whole talk was about. It was about how the street store has taught us so much more and can teach other people so much more in everyday life.
And also, I think, to that point, I think also to your question is, you know, if you want to do something, I think it is not, you know, or to leave a legacy behind isn't about, you know, becoming a president or leader and getting a statue made of you or whatever. It's about being, it's about being that president or whoever and creating an idea that is so contagious you cannot but not control it, that it spreads throughout the world. And hopefully that idea is a good idea, and hopefully that is our legacy, that the street store keeps on going and that people keep on doing it, and that it stays a movement, and that it doesn't die out. So,
and
yeah.
if the idea inspires people to do something else, that's great. You don't have to do a street store. Obviously, we'd love people to do them. You could apply on www.thestreetstore.org. But not. There's so many other ways to help people. And an example is that there was a company who did a case study on us, and they work with a lot of charities, NGOs and charities. And they came back to us and said that after doing the case study and presenting it to their clients, 2 of their clients went open source. They realized that by holding on to the company and the way that it worked, they were actually missing out on being able to spread further. So they actually went open source purely because of the way that they saw it worked for us. So, I mean, that's got nothing to do with the street store. They're not spreading the word of the street store. They're not doing them. But their charities are benefiting from the thinking.
Wow. So, I mean, would you be flattered that people are taking on the idea of the street store and starting, for example, the street job shop, where if I need something to be painted, I could drop it off at 8 o'clock in the morning and come and fetch it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I know that someone has painted it, and it's given them something to do, but it's also benefited me, and I'm willing to make a contribution to the local night shelter. Maybe, for example, I need my pants tailored, and I would rather give it to someone who is going to work on it seriously, and we literally start a whole bunch of different jobs that grow into this massive workplace. I mean, you never know what could come out of it.
There's a group that do that overseas, where people with a skill, generally disadvantaged people with a skill, you can go there and you can give them your things, like exactly what you said. They fix chairs, they fix tables, they can sew up clothes, they can paint. We've thought about it and we're looking into things like that, but it's been strange because we made this whole thing open source so that people could use it, and we've had people who've gone and just copied it and claimed it as their own. There are people who've done that as well, and we find it strange that they would do that considering we made it open source. But I mean, what's it? Copying is the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah. And they're doing good in the end. What can you do?
I mean, who are the beneficiaries? The people on the street. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's you almost want to not be angry with them for just taking the idea and taking the credit for it, because at the end of the day, I mean, you have put in all that time and energy, and you are sharing it with the interest of benefiting homeless people and homeless people around the world, and it's only fair that people are going to use the idea, at least acknowledge that you were behind it.
I mean, it's not even like an ownership thing for us. It's not that we want everyone to go, "Ooh, Kayli and Max from MNC Saatchi Able came up with this idea." They don't have to do that. It's more about we created something to share so that we could help people learn from it. And when someone's copied it and claims it as their own, they haven't made theirs shareable. So no one else in their community is going to go and do it. And they don't know that they can because they're not promoting the fact that it's open source. So, like, it's just a moral kind of thing for us. It was just strange to find that someone would go and do something like that. But it's okay. At least they're helping people at the end of the day.
In South Africa, we say sis to anyone who does that. Sis. Okay, so unfortunately, and I mean that in all sincerity, we've actually come to the end of our interview.
Wow.
But I have to tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you too, because there's no greater, from a teacher's point of view, there's nothing greater than learning from people who are willing to share. And I'm part of a community of a few hundred teachers that are habitual sharers. We believe in this open source of giving. I mean, if I come across a great website, I tweet it, I email it out. I don't say, well, this is mine and it's going to empower me to be a better person, but at someone else's expense. I want other people to be able to share. That is why we broadcast this interview live. I want people to join in. That is why it will be on YouTube forever, so that people can watch it and learn from this and hopefully be inspired to go and do just as many great things as you guys have done, despite the fact that that wasn't your intention. I think we can now acknowledge that there is a inertia and momentum, and it's growing, and I know that you guys are protective over it, despite the fact that you're like, no, we're not doing it for the credit, but you are quite protective over it because this is your baby.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can have more people, creating their own babies based on the strength and the conviction that you guys had by looking at what you saw in the street, converted into an idea, and justly so. I mean, you've made a huge impact not only in the lives of people who need it, but in people who could possibly pass on other ideas to other people and maybe spread the love and the joy, and maybe homeless people will be more peaceful towards the pockets, and maybe the pockets will be more peaceful towards the homeless people because there will be a mutual respect towards one another. So we'd like to say thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts, and for all of those that watched it live on YouTube, thank you for joining us. And of course, for those of you who didn't watch it live, you're probably watching this as a recording. We thank you so much for coming in. And thank you to Sebastian and Cheryl. And we had Kathy as well. And I'm not sure who else popped in from overseas. But I know that this is definitely an enjoyable interview. And we hope to see great things coming from you. We'll be watching you at the Luries to see if the rest of the advertising community has got a heart and understands that what you've come up with is an excellent idea, and very proudly South African. And we look to see further growth, and we want to see that more people are going to start street stores all over the world. And we're going to try and share this video with as many people as possible so that your Facebook page will be bombarded with people that are desiring to start street stores. And yes, you're going to get lots of emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you will be frustrated, but with a happy smile. And of course, Max Brackenfell's going to love you. They're going to ask you to go back to career days, and you're going to be the doyen of that community. So, well done to both of you, and congratulations. And we will connect with you guys very soon. All right.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to us.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
And so much talking.
You well.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I've just